giving you your neutrino, or is it neutrino star, or is it proton star, or something like that? No, I think it's neutrino. That, no, or pulsar. That's not proton, pulsar. That's what I'm thinking of. Where it's just a singular pulse that just pings like a rhythm, because the inside is still going, but the outside is fused metal. So it sends out a pulse, just like the dark rift. It's about the equivalency. The center of our galaxy seems bright instead of a black hole because most of the solar systems are gathered densely around it, because there's a war of water between them. It'll be constant until the suns outweigh and as they draw in. Our job would be then to collapse systems and allow them to be drawn back in. But as long as they have water, they fight it. So we have to, being carriers or vessels of water and electric, we take it out and diminish the power of a solar system and keep moving them in. Eventually it becomes what you would call a black hole, which we will get into at a different time, because it's really an inverted planet. All the water would be outside, the crust would be inside, but then the core would be all the heat and light. So, and you can imagine what kind of life forms that would produce. I'm looking at my notes. Oh, the pole is another indication. The magnetic pole is the direction. It's the perpendicular of the storms. They travel on an, instead of side by side, they travel on an angle up along with the pole, and they swirl around it. But yet there's also the rebound to consider, and that's where you get your tornadoes in the northern hemisphere. But you notice you don't get tornadoes so much in the southern hemisphere. It's because it doesn't have the lap back down. In the atmosphere, we see the effect in the north. It swings around and comes back, and on our soil especially, we get a mixing of the two, and we get our funnels. Whereas in the south, it's the tidals primarily still in, or the water effects in the tidal, and then we get slung earthquake shots up the coast. There are only three metals, or elements. Metals, I got the metals over here, that's why I'm making note. There are the metals, there are the solids or silicates, and then there are waters. Now, waters can be anything from acids or anything that can take a liquid form. Your solids would be silicates on up until you hit metals. Then you have the metals. Now, the reason being is the water is the interactive. Venus still has an acid atmosphere, acid rain. We get in its tail. The water moves constantly. If you follow it, you'll see that the ice core starts up, attracting all the silicates and other matter near it, because there's no greater attraction at that point. And it recollects loosely, hence the blue look to Uranus and Neptune. Well, actually the blue to one, and now the other's turning a little gray as far as the last pictures I had seen. But they had that bluish look because the water was still on the outside, some from the seventh planet being destroyed. If I got that right, seventh. You call it an asteroid belt, but that's also the reason for Jupiter and Saturn to have the rings and the storm, is because it's actually from the other planet that's been knocked off. Yeah, good, got that one. The belt, or the rings, and then also the belt look to Jupiter shows us the plane that the planet travels on. It also shows the storm plane, but you're not accounting for the curve of the cone. The sun travels, we travel with it. You think it's stationary just because you have no point of reference, but it's moving faster than we are, and we're trying to catch up. We're closely attracted to it, so it draws us in, and that's the reason we don't just suck straight in and burn off and be done. It's because it's in motion. Yeah, I'm umming a lot for anybody out there that it's because there's a lot of information. Spin is a byproduct as well. Our spin, if you notice, the planets don't have the same amount of spin. They don't have an equal day. because of the effect of the water. The more water is prevalent and moving, the faster we'll spin. Trying to cut this down as fast as I can. It's the equivalency of the recycling system. We end up burning everything off at the sun. It rakes across all the other planets, having its effect, obviously, with our sunlight and whatnot. But at the same time, we're here, and it's going to radiate out. So you're going to be picked up, and you're going to have misses. So they reform. They get drawn back in. There's no greater attraction in the immediate area. And they reform. The ice cores, it draws it in. Eventually, you get a transference where it comes out. What's happening on Mars? The molten core begins up. You'll have a slushy middle. Be some waters, that'll occur just because of the motion over a long period of time. In fact, I don't think anything before Saturn really has any molten core, and I'm not even sure about Saturn. I know Jupiter's got motion that is close enough, and it should be to that point. But the transference then cores the ice out at the poles. Hence your ice age, because it will break and shelve off. Plow, giving you your plates, shoving some of the soils up, to build the continental belt. And but it will be on the southern tip. Since we're moving north now, we will eventually be on the southern tip of Mars. About 1,200 years is the timing on that. That's also when I would expect Mars to ignite, and which will eventually pull in and burn up. And they go in slow. It's a fusing. You guys are so impatient, so you make everything to be fast. And fast does destroy. But that's because you're involved. If you take it out and you put God and His creation and His design in, it's perfect. It'll slowly fuse in. Eventually, we'll be farther away, so it won't have the same effect. We'll be on the next planet anyways when it fuses, no matter what. It should be about 12,000 years from the fusing time. So that would actually coincide with the flood, which there will occur another flood on each and every one of these planets halfway through. The balance is hit, enough ice is out that it creates enough to where it gets the what we call condensation in the atmospheric systems that you've somewhat understood. But it will cause a balance and it will start to rain. Now, of course, those there at the time will have to be responsible enough to figure out what the hell's going on, right? And that's the story of Noah. But it will be in the southern, because the heavier materials start to drag behind, so the effect falls out behind us, which is to the south. We move north, by the way. But everything in creation goes to two major symbols, and that's the snowflake, which is the prime construct form. The framework of everything created is the snowflake design, and the cone, which is the motion. And if you can understand the two of those things and everything around you, it'll make a lot more sense. Now, another note, the fact that we burn off and recycle makes the total planet time of Earth less than 4. Actually, it's 325,000, I think, is where we're at. I think. I can't remember. I know it's a 400,000 year cycle, but I can't remember exactly where we are in it. I know we're past 300, but we're not past 325 yet. I don't think. Because it's 25,000 years per spot. Moving in. And the spin, I didn't quite get to that. The spin is the byproduct of the waters. The more it moves, the more it pushes and moves the soils, and it just gradually spins faster and faster. We are at a point now that's probably about the fastest that it spins before it starts to degrade. This 7 years is a warning. And I've already said once before about the rainbow sun, hence what I'll be calling this, because on 12/21 we are going to be, the understanding isn't that it's a mystical day. It's the day where we are farthest from the sun, so the effect would be strongest. It's the day of guarantee that we will see something. But what it'll end up being is what the Egyptians called the Great Green Sea, where we see, like a cat's eye, the effect of light being reflected away from us. Instead of coming in at us and lighting us properly, our sky is going to turn into a much, much bigger aurora borealis, and it will have the rainbow effect. So that is what to expect.